This is the VOA Special English Education Report. Outdoors in the open air seems like a natural place to study natural science. It also makes sense in a place like Southern California, where people like to be outside a lot. Now, the Natural History Museum of Los Angeles County is working to bring the indoors to the outdoors for its visitors. The museum has redesigned an outdoor space into a living exhibit. This is a big change for the 1.5 hectare area. It used to include a parking lot. Now, instead of cars, it welcomes birds, butterflies, and other living things. Scientists who work at the museum come outside to describe plants and insects in the natural setting of this outdoor laboratory. Greg Pauly specializes in studying turtles, like the western pond turtle. He tells the students how development has changed its natural habitat. He says these turtles are happiest around small bodies of water that grow and shrink with the seasons. He tells the students that 150 years ago, before there were very many people in the area, all the streams were just seasonal streams. And the western pond turtle loved that habitat, he says, and with people, we have changed the habitat. Today, he says, there is a lot more permanent water, like a pond at the Natural History Museum itself. And he says the changing habitat is one reason why western pond turtles are shrinking in number. In addition to science lessons, the open-air exhibit can provide contact with nature in a way that some city children rarely get. Landscape architect Mia Lehrer says children can get real-life answers to questions they may be wondering about. For instance, she says some children do not know that ketchup comes from tomatoes, and they can see what strawberry plants look like to know that strawberries do not just come from a container in the store. Only parts of the new outdoor campus are open now, but Karen Wise says more changes are coming. Ms. Wise is the museum's vice president for education and exhibits. She says, now we are opening up the whole museum, making it an indoor-outdoor experience so that our visitors can be a part of the experience. The work is expected to be completed by June of 2013. Next year is the museum's 100th anniversary. For VOA Special English, I'm Alex Villarreal. You can read, listen, and learn English with more education stories at voaspecialenglish.com. You can also find a video about the new outdoor exhibit at the Natural History Museum of Los Angeles County. From VOA Learning English, this is your news about education in special English. Medical schools in the United States traditionally require 4 years of study. Now, a small number of universities are offering 3-year programs. Finishing medical school in 3 years means new doctors could begin their careers sooner. The reduction of a year could also save up to 25% of the cost. That would decrease heavy student loan debts for some students who borrow money to pay for their education. Schools offering 3-year programs include the Texas Tech University Health Sciences Center and Mercer University in Georgia. New York University in Manhattan is also testing a 3-year program. At NYU, 10% of the nearly 200 students who entered the School of Medicine last fall were chosen for the new program. Students can change to the 4-year program if the faster one is too difficult or too much pressure. Arthur Kaplan is a bioethicist. He leads the Division of Medical Ethics at NYU. He says the current system of American medical education dates back to the early 20th century. An American doctor named Simon Flexner studied the German model of medical education. The Germans divided it into 2 years of science and 2 years of supervised clinical work with patients. American medical schools copied the model. But Arthur Kaplan says today, medical students should be spending less time in the classroom and more time gaining experience in modern medicine. After medical school, most new doctors spend at least 3 years working in residencies in hospitals. Further training for specialty areas can take much longer. For VOA Learning English, I'm Alex Villarreal. This is the VOA Special English Education Report. More than 600 delegates recently met in Burkina Faso to discuss education in Africa. The aim is to find ways to support economic growth by improving education and job training programs. The delegates included education ministers and representatives of civil society, business, labor, and youth groups. The meeting, held every 3 years, is known as the Triennial. Alan Beal-Kataria is Executive Secretary of the Association for the Development of Education in Africa. His group organized the week-long conference. He says there is a missing link between education and employment in Africa. For example, schools need to improve technical training for students who do not continue to secondary education. Mr. Beal-Kataria says educational programs need to be reshaped to better fit the needs of employers. He says this is already happening in some countries, including Tunisia, where the association is based. For instance, where they have to train engineers, there is a lot of discussion between the schools and the companies in order to know the demands of the company, to take them into account in the curriculum and even in the management of the schools. In Mali, an association of artisans is working to improve the skills of mechanics, woodworkers, and tradesmen. That association has also helped workers and companies to win government contracts. Several West African countries are working together to develop a network of trade and vocational schools. The idea is based in part on a successful example developed by Nigeria. Mr. Beal-Kataria says educators are working to connect government-run school systems with other groups that are helping educate students. These include non-governmental organizations, community literacy centers, and faith-based groups. Among these groups are Islamic schools, or madrasas, that are expanding what they teach. Another subject for the conference was peace education. The idea grew out of the violence in Kenya related to elections in 2007. The idea of peace education has since spread to countries including Rwanda, Somalia, Ivory Coast, Sierra Leone, and Liberia. New technology offers a way for Africans living elsewhere in the world, the African diaspora, to aid development in their home country. For example, a professor could use video conferencing to teach a class back home. For VOA Special English, I'm Alex Villarreal.